Just okay, wonderful. Hello, everyone, and welcome to C-SHIP fourth and last, actually, webinar of this year's season. Today's webinar is addressing cultural entrepreneurship and green transition, and it is under the framework of the large-scale skills partnership for the cultural and creative industries of the Pact of Skills. Before we start, I would like to dedicate a quick moment for housekeeping. We have muted everyone by default. Please note that the webinar will be recorded, so please feel free to keep your camera on or off. The last 20 minutes are dedicated to Q&A, so you're welcome to use the chat box throughout the entire session. And you can also click on the microphone to mute or unmute yourself and interact directly with the speakers during the Q&A session. I will start first of all by giving a very brief description of what C-SHIP is, and then I will introduce our three bright speakers. So I will start by sharing my screen. Voila, I guess you all see my screen, which is now in full screen. Okay, so our program C-SHIP stands for Cultural Entrepreneurship, and it provides action learning training and awareness raising on cultural entrepreneurship, and it is designed for professionals in the cultural and creative industries, but also aspirants. The profiles who usually join C-SHIP come from five sectors who are the visual and performing arts, cultural heritage professionals, design, film and audiovisual production, and cultural institutions and museums. The training program is designed to guide CCI's professionals and aspirants towards starting an entrepreneurial journey, ensure the financial viability of their projects, develop and/or strengthen their managerial skills for a sustainable and resilient project, and finally, maximizing the societal contribution and positive impacts of their projects. The program is structured and dependent on five interdependent pillars. The first one is innovation in business and operating models, building systems and partnerships, sustainability and positive impacts, internal and external governance, and exponential technologies. We are launching very soon our two training programs. The first one, Entrepreneur, is starting on 19th of June and is structured in 8 half days. It is addressing visual and performing artists, while C-SHIP training, which is a more intensive training, it's starting on the 19th of March and it's structured in 20 half days. In order to raise awareness about cultural entrepreneurship, we offer every year a season of webinars. The first season was dedicated to our five interdependent pillars. The second season was dedicated on the interdependent relationship between art and business and how to develop a financial model for the cultural and creative industries. While this year's series or season, which is under the framework of the large-scale skills partnership for cultural and creative industries, is covering the four working groups thematics of the large-scale partnership. So I would like now to present our three speakers, starting with Jordi Baltà Portolés, who is a consultant, researcher, and trainer in cultural policy and international affairs, with a particular interest in the role of culture in sustainable development, cultural diversity, and international cultural cooperation. Jordi works at Transit Projects, a cultural management company based in L'Hospitalet de Llobregat, Barcelona. It's currently coordinating the working group on skills for the green transformation of the European large-scale skills partnership for the cultural and creative industries. Jordi is also an advisor on culture and sustainable cities for the United Cities and Local Governments Committee on Culture, and he is a member of the expert facility for the UNESCO Convention on the Protection and Promotion of the Diversity of Cultural Expressions. Jordi teaches at the Masters in Cultural Management at the Open University of Catalonia and the University of Girona, as well as the degree in International Relations at the University Ramon Llull. Our second speaker today is Finn van Dinter. I will first present his organization, Pulse. Pulse is the cultural network for transition, and it believes that culture is an important driver for transition to a socially just and sustainable society. It connects cultural and youth work organizations and professionals that experiment with sustainable alternatives to our current societal model, with self-sufficiency and cultural activism at its core. Pulse is a bottom-up network and community that was founded by several players in the cultural scene in Flanders, Belgium, who were on the forefront of sustainability in arts, culture, media, and youth. Its activities are centered around inspiration, activation, and community building, field safaris, tools on culturezam.be, networking events. Finn has an education in cultural agogics and a background in youth work. He is not so much a sustainability expert as he is a network facilitator, connecting the people, the knowledge, and practices within the network. Besides overseeing and caring for its members, Finn also manages Pulse's organizational policy and supervises several projects. Our third speaker today is Tokie Brown. Tokie is a heritage architect at Merging Ecologies and a scientific member of the scientific committee in the graduate program in cultural heritage studies at the University of Nova Gorica in Slovenia. She is co-founder of the Foundation for the Preservation of Cultural Heritage in Nigeria and an expert member of the International Scientific Committee on Cultural Landscapes, and she represents Nigeria on the International Council on Monuments and Sites, ICOMOS IFLA. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I would start with you, Jordi, actually, first of all, to welcome you and ask you to elaborate a little bit on your work and why the green transformation is relevant for skills today.
Thank you very much, Ruba, for the invitation as well as for this introduction. And as you said, I mean, you've explained that the series this year, the series of webinars this year is connected to the different working groups of the large-scale skills partnership for the cultural and creative industries. And I am speaking here on behalf of one of those working groups, in particular the one that examines how skills in the cultural and creative industries within the professionals and the organizations active at European level could need to be adapted in the context of the green transition. So basically the aim of this working group, which was established earlier this year, at the beginning of 2023, is to discuss skills needs as well as to explore the availability and the needs in terms of upskilling, reskilling, and training programs to adapt the sector to the challenges, but also to reflect on the pressing questions at the back of this issue. And what I'd like to do today is to briefly present, and I'll be sharing a presentation of some of the work that we've been doing so far. This is a relatively small initiative. I mean, we bring together at present about 10 organizations, including a few European networks, as well as some national organizations, universities, and smaller scale organizations in the cultural and creative industries that have a common interest in this, discussing these issues related to training and skill development for the green transition in the sector. Some of the members approach it particularly in specific sectors like music or film and audiovisual, etc., and or the performing arts, and others that have a broader range or a more transversal approach. And one of the things we've done, like as I said, we've been working together for about 10 months, and we decided to start by doing a small mapping of some of the initiatives in terms of training and capacity building in the field that the members of the group could know, and on the basis of that, we extracted some conclusions and some findings, and that is somehow guiding our work. So I'd like to, I mean, after presenting this initial context, just reflect on some of the things we've found. Now, first of all, of course, there's the issue of how we define skills for the green transition in the cultural and creative industries, and I mean, we have not properly provided a definition as such. I mean, to a large extent, because that wasn't necessarily the main purpose of what we did, and probably because different members come from different perspectives. But we've somehow at least tried to identify some of the elements that provide the background to that understanding of the skills. And moving from the more general elements to the more specific elements, some of the things that I think are worth stressing is, for instance, some of the contributions made by the Green Comp, which is a European sustainability competence framework developed by the Joint Research Center of the European Commission a couple of years ago, which identifies a set of competencies related to sustainability that are valid across all areas of education and lifelong learning, and let's say which would be relevant to anyone regardless of the specific area in which they work. And there's some of those elements which have a lot to do with cultural aspects and creative aspects. So things like valuing sustainability, which involves reflecting on the personal values and identifying and explaining how values may vary across different people and across different places and times, supporting fairness, promoting nature, systems thinking, which would be, let's say, considering elements of time, space, and context in order to understand how elements interact, critical thinking, features literacy, which involves envisioning alternative sustainable features by imagining alternative scenarios, adaptability, or exploratory thinking, among others. And that's a very interesting report, actually. If anyone is interested in exploring this further, it's very much an advisable read. And what is important to emphasize here is that although these elements would be valid across all areas of life, we can see several connections with the kind of work that might be done by professionals in the cultural and creative sectors. And also, so let's say at this level of the broader frameworks, I mean, it's important to emphasize that there are connections in this reflection with target 13.3 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which suggests the need to improve education, awareness raising, and human and institutional capacity on climate change, mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. So the need to adapt our knowledge and our skills in the context of climate change and the transformation of the planet. And finally, let's say also at this general level, the references that exist in several documents produced in the context of the European Green Deal on the need to enhance education, training, upskilling, and reskilling. So this provides a first layer, a relatively general layer on these issues. Now, secondly, and this comes more directly from some of our reflections within the working group. Now, what are some of the needs that we think training, upskilling, and reskilling programs in the CCIs should try to address? First of all, embedding an awareness and a knowledge related to sustainability and to the green transition at all levels. So let's say something that should be made transversal across training programs in this field. And that should include the multiple dimensions of sustainability. So going beyond a purely technical understanding of what sustainability means, understanding the interactions between the environmental, the technological, the social, the economic, the cultural, and the political dimensions of sustainability, if you wish. I mean, of course, there's different layers or different levels of complexity, but at least understanding that it is somehow a holistic concept. Secondly, seeing how that applies particularly in the cultural field, and let's say what sustainability and resilience apply to culture, and how the cultural and creative industries could adapt to a carbon neutral society. Thirdly, emphasizing some of the elements that are specific to the kind of contribution the cultural and creative organizations can do. So stressing the potential of creative approaches to the green transition, the potential to foster the design of future scenarios, but also how cultural and creative organizations can be enablers of others in order to imagine sustainable futures. So that's also, of course, a specific range of skills that can be connected to that. And finally, a couple of elements that might be a bit more, maybe more transversal, but or let's say more methodological, maybe, but which are important to emphasize. Our understanding that probably you need training programs for specialized professional roles, say that within organizations, you might have people that have a particular role in the green management of organizations or in integrating on mainstreaming sustainability issues. But at the same time, there should also be opportunities for a basic understanding and a basic training of competencies on sustainability for all types of sectors and all types of positions. And finally, of course, the need for this to be a permanent effort, because the context and the implications of sustainability will vary quite regularly. So having seen this, now as I was saying, so we did this small scale mapping, which doesn't as the title I use here suggests, doesn't mean to be comprehensive. It could not be, but at least it helped us to identify, say, 20-30 initiatives which were relevant to these. And on this basis, say, some of the findings that we could extract from that are the following. First, that our impression, and that's something that we could further discuss later, that probably initiatives of practical implication and skill development for the green transition are less developed in the cultural and creative industries than they are in other sectors, that probably here, say, priorities have been of other kinds, and there's probably a more slow take-up of training initiatives in addressing this particular field. And of course, that leads to the question of to what extent training programs that have been designed for other sectors could be applied to the cultural and creative industries. And there is certainly a potential for transfer of knowledge and experiences. But at the same time, as I was somehow suggesting in the previous slide, you also need to recognize things that are specific to the cultural and creative industries, elements that have to do with how you manage cultural heritage, intangible knowledge, traditional knowledge, but also, say, the potential of creativity, the management of cultural diversity, and so on. And so there's elements that could be specific, as well as differences between different sectors or subsectors in the cultural and creative industries. And even though, I mean, I think there's quite a lot of potential to provide some training that is transversal, or which can be offered widely, you also need to understand what might be specific. Second, or another finding, which I think is worth mentioning, is the perception, and going back to the previous idea that you should not apply sustainability only in a technical or in a purely technological or scientific way, the understanding that sustainability programs across all areas, including in the cultural and creative industries, sometimes have not reached their objectives because they have underestimated the importance of human and cultural factors, which reinforces this need for a comprehensive, holistic, interconnected understanding of sustainability and how cultural factors play a role there. Now, of course, we also could observe that in recent years, there has been an increasing number of new guides, toolkits, short-term or long-term training courses on the greening aspects in the cultural and creative industries, and that that is particularly visible in some sectors, and we could identify particular high number in the film and audiovisual sector, which seems to be better developed than other subsectors in the cultural and creative industries. And several of these initiatives have received funding from the EU, which is worth stressing. So there is quite a number of European funded projects addressing these issues in recent years, as well as just now underway. What some of the people, when we've discussed these, one of the reactions has sometimes also been that it's all good to have so many toolkits and guides and so on, but that probably you don't only need practical guides. You do need hands-on, very practical guides, but you also need spaces in which to reflect more broadly and further in depth on the meaning of sustainability and what that means, and also understanding that even though you might, and I think there is a potential to use tools that have been developed elsewhere, you often also need to reflect on the specific implications and the specific consequences of sustainability and adaptation in your specific local and regional context. So there needs to be a dialogue, say, between those more universal tools and the specific implications in your context. We could identify a relatively small number of structured curricula and training certification initiatives. So lots of short-term courses and so on, but less integrated, systematic, structured training programs. And finally, an important observation because of our scope, our geographic scope at European level, the perception that the provision of training in this field, as probably in other fields, but in this one, it's particular, remains quite unequal across the European Union, which raises issues in terms of how you can transfer knowledge and collaborate and so on. So on the basis of these are some of the issues we're currently exploring. Some of them we've already started to develop, others are just very general reflections. So, but I'm sharing these just to partly to explain where we are at, and also to say, well, this is a relatively open conversation. So if anyone is interested in exploring it further, we're also happy to engage other organizations in the process. One partly related to these imbalances across Europe was the question of to what extent it is easy to access information that could be useful to you, but which is maybe only available in another language, or which is available in a language you might be able to access, but of which you are not aware. So the issue of gaps in access to information emerges as an important one. And there we could observe that there have been some initiatives, as the sorry, I just now noticed that there's a spelling mistake in the slide, but basically there's this project called Green Toolkit Film TV Project. It's a longer, actually, the project has a much longer title, but if you look for that, it has its own website with that name. And what they've done is to do a rather comprehensive mapping of initiatives to green the film, audiovisual and TV sector across Europe. And so you can find guides in different languages from different countries covering different issues and so on. So that is available in that sector, and well, that could provide some inspiration of what could be done in other sectors as well. And let's say that issue of access to information is one that we're considering. Secondly, and connected to one of the issues I was mentioning earlier, the need to understand greening and sustainability in a broad sense, going beyond the focus on carbon reduction, much as that is important, but let's say a broader understanding of what that means. We've begun to consider the need to compare training methodologies and approaches in terms of, say, the different training formats, the target groups, etc. And we've considered the possibility of mapping the projects under Erasmus Plus and potentially under other European programs that have addressed skills for the green transformation in the cultural and creative industries, because there is a potential to make that knowledge better available. And then on a more pragmatic way, what we're trying to do, because let's say our working group for the time being does not receive direct funding. So basically we do these on the basis of our own resources. What we're doing is trying to build synergies with the activities of members of the working group. So when some of the members have congresses or webinars or other activities, we're trying to see whether, let's say, we can connect and then, well, somehow amplify and make better use of the resources. So yeah, I think this is more or less what I wanted to share for now, and happy to take part in the conversation later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jordi, for this helicopter overview of what the working group on the green transformation has achieved until now. As you said, it's a voluntary basis membership where members are dedicating their time and expertise in order to discuss